Good evening, everybody. It is truly heartening to see such an impressive turnout for our inaugural Going Green event. And before I dive into my transformative journey with the Petey Greene Program and share some of my favorite stories that have emerged from the region, um, at risk of sounding redundant, I would like to take a moment to recognize some of my colleagues, especially Sarah and Meg tonight. Their tireless efforts have been instrumental in bringing this night to fruition, and I am immensely grateful for the passion and the hard work that they, along with all of my other coworkers, have poured into making this night a reality. Now, I may seem fairly new to the Petey Greene Program, having only been a staff member for a little over a year now, but PGP has been an integral part of my life for about 5 years, going all the way back to my freshman year at Haverford College. I was struggling through a schedule of challenging classes while trying to convince myself that it was okay I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life yet. A part of my struggle was the fact that I had French class at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday for the entire first year of college, which seems a bit cruel in my opinion. And my suite mate had Fridays off. Um, but a few weeks into the fall semester, I noticed that she was getting up with me at the crack of dawn on her day off. And I remember questioning her sanity one day in the bathroom for not taking advantage of her free Friday. She revealed to me that she was volunteering with this nonprofit, going in and tutoring at a carceral facility at Chester and helping the students inside get their GED. And turns out that was the Petey Greene Program. And I said that was the only thing that would get me up at 7 a.m. on my day off. So come sophomore year, I eagerly applied, interviewed, and started tutoring at SCI Chester. I gladly sacrificed my long-awaited free Fridays to carpool to sessions with Rebecca, and I never looked back. I loved telling people about my Friday mornings as it always posed an opportunity to advocate for the students that I was working with. More often than not, people who operate outside of this realm have preconceived notions about the incarcerated population, and they would express concern for me in entering these types of spaces. I was never nervous to enter a carceral facility. I was only ever nervous that I would not be a supportive enough tutor. The men I worked with at SCI Chester were the most driven, dedicated students I've ever had the privilege of working with, and I used any opportunity to express these sentiments to others. To commit themselves to their academic goals while shouldering the harsh, inhumane realities of incarceration, coming to each session with boundless energy and an admirable work ethic, I was honored to play a small role in supporting them. The first student I had regularly met with was named Shahid. Over the course of several months, we worked together on the math and reading sections of the GED, and I learned that he wanted to attain this degree not only for personal achievement, but for his young daughter. He sought to be a role model representing the boundless possibilities that come with facing adversary with perseverance, or adversity with perseverance. Shahid and I bonded over our love for Philly sports and scary movies and our shared disdain for fractions. And that was my favorite part of tutoring. While the primary objective is obviously academic, the genuine human connection that naturally evolves is what truly distinguishes these sessions. Many students have expressed that coming to tutoring is the one time a week where they feel genuinely seen, acknowledged not just by their last name or their assigned number, but as individuals with unique experiences and narratives, restoring a sense of autonomy through education. On our last day of tutoring before spring break, Shahid revealed that he had passed the math section of the GED. He kept his test date a secret because he wanted to surprise me, and the joy that I felt was, quickly washed away because I went to go give him a hug and I was yelled at because you're not allowed to do that in prison. But it really stuck with me. And the next week, COVID hit, and I never got to meet with him again. And I think about him and his daughter a lot. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the experience I had as a tutor at SCI Chester transformed my college experience and my post-grad life. After being introduced through Petey Greene to the concept of education justice, the pervasiveness of the carceral state, and the inherent justices that follow, I ended up majoring in anthropology, taking a plethora of courses centered around prison abolition and human rights. I landed an AmeriCorps fellowship after graduation, where I basically demanded to be placed at the Petey Greene Program as their volunteer coordinator for my year of service. And I remember when I was interviewing for the position, I asked if I could still tutor alongside my duties as a staff member. I was able to tutor at the Federal Detention Center, working with one female student whose eyesight was so poor that she required surgery and specialized glasses, which were not provided by the facility. But every week she showed up with a magnifying glass to help see the math problems because she was determined to get her GED before she left. I distinctly recall feeling panicked as my fellowship year approached its conclusion, reluctant to part ways with PGP. It felt like fate then that an opportunity materialized, allowing me to stay on board and step into the role of division manager. This was really made possible through the unwavering support of Jeff and my former supervisor, Marie. Their encouragement and belief in my capabilities transformed what seemed like an impending farewell into a new chapter. In my role as a division manager, I've had the privilege of collaborating closely with some exceptional organizations like Beyond Literacy and Philly Connect and PAN, Philadelphia Anti-Drug, Anti-Violence Network. I'm also working with FDC and SCI Chester and soon SCI Phoenix again. I've worked with dedicated volunteers and motivated students. It feels as if it were just yesterday that I was driving to SCI Chester with Rebecca, and now I find myself at the helm. My aim is to instill in others the same sense of excitement that I experienced every Friday, fostering a collective enthusiasm for the impactful work that we undertake. I would like to conclude by recounting a touching full circle moment that occurred a few months ago, reinforcing what I've long understood about the profound impact of the Petey Greene Program. I was invited to table at SCI Chester's annual career fair to remind everyone there that they have the right to access our tutoring services. During the fair, my table was approached by a man who excitedly exclaimed, "Petey Greene," with a very warm familiarity. Intrigued, I inquired about his connection to us, assuming that he was a part of our current tutoring cohort. He dove into the story of how he wanted to apply for a steel cutting apprenticeship, which upon his release would lead to a permanent job in the field. He got through the application process and was in the final interview, passing with flying colors, he said, until the interviewer mentioned that he needed to be familiar with geometry. He said his heart immediately sank. He is dyslexic and school was always a struggle for him. He was never supported from a young age to overcome this or learn how to work through it, and so he had no confidence in this realm. He was able to attend tutoring with Petey Greene alongside the GED students to brush up on his math skills since it had been decades since he was last in school. I asked him what year he attended tutoring, and when he replied 2019, my head started spinning. I excitedly revealed that that was the year that I began tutoring, and he said, "Oh, you must remember me then. I was the student who always brought his dog." SCI Chester had a partnership with a local animal shelter that allowed the men inside to foster dogs for a period of time in order to train them, which in turn made them a lot more likely to be adopted, which I found to be a very beautiful symbiotic relationship. And that small piece of information opened the floodgates, and it was like I was right back in the classroom. Piecing together that he was a student in 2019, studying for an apprenticeship, and always brought his dog, I was prompted to ask, "Do you remember if your tutor's name was Rebecca Chen, my old roommate?" His eyes lit up and he answered yes. I asked him what his name was, and he replied with Mason, and everything clicked into place. I was so excited to tell him that on the car ride home every week, Rebecca would rave about her student, Mr. Mason, how every session he came to tutoring extremely motivated and excited to get to work. She would say that almost sometimes he was too excited and she could not understand how someone could have so much energy at 8 in the morning. I revealed that Rebecca often said that he was the most dedicated and diligent student she's ever worked with. And the fact that I remembered these sentiments almost 4 years later was only a testament to that. Mr. Mason got visibly emotional, and it was about 30 seconds before he was actually able to speak. And he said, "I feel so lucky to have run into you today. Please extend my most sincere and heartfelt gratitude to Rebecca. Petey Greene was there for me during a very dark and frustrating time when I didn't think I could do anything with my life." Throughout our exchange, there were several moments where he needed to collect himself. And this display of vulnerability, inside a prison in such a vast, filled auditorium really resonated with me. And the reconnection unfolded like a scene from a movie. Like I mentioned earlier, tutoring ended abruptly when the pandemic struck, preventing us from saying goodbye to the students that we had been meeting with for months. Rebecca and Mason had made huge strides together, and there was never any closure. I went on to tell him that Rebecca is now at Mount Sinai studying to become a doctor. She actually wrote about her time tutoring with him in her med school applications, and that experience, as that experience greatly impacted her as much as it did him, again, inspired by his grit and tenacity. Learning that Mason ended up successfully qualifying for his apprenticeship, ensuring a future in steel cutting upon his release spoke volumes about his diligence and the invaluable support he received from Rebecca. Reconnecting with him was a stroke of luck, allowing me to convey the depth of his impact as both a student and a person, and he seemed so glad to have had the opportunity to express how grateful he was for Petey Greene. When we shook hands and said our goodbyes, he said, "I am going to be smiling from ear to ear for the rest of the day, and when someone asks me why I'm so happy, I'm going to say Petey Greene." So I just want to say thank you to the Petey Greene program. I started this journey at 18 with no direction, and now I am fueled with such a passion for this work that it's really hard to imagine my life without it. So yeah, thank you.